Okay. I'll let people flow in a little bit. Yeah, so let's hear if there's anybody here. Few there. Okay. Let's press. I'm stunned. While we're waiting for our audience to arrive, walking in here for the first time. Is it your first time, Eleanor? I mean, it was stopped me in my tracks because I I know it's more like I was saying to myself, wow, is this the way it was way back when, before it was taken, commandeered as the, yeah, that's right. So, I mean, it's a great space, especially the high ceiling, it's really terrific, so.
It's pretty cozy.
So cozy, it's majestic is the word I would use. So, okay, I'm ready to rock and roll. This one of the things we're going to talk about is the work that Ed has been working on sort of rules of procedure and guidelines for meetings. I'm going to gavel the meeting to order. I was told at one point in time that there ought to always be a gavel. This is the Medium Housing Authority Board of Commissioners regular monthly meeting, which was duly noticed in the town clerk's calendar on August 12th, 2022, and we're being held on a hybrid basis with 4 commissioners here and 1 attending remotely. So we're going to need to, again, do everything by roll call vote until we gather in person here. And if I forget, I'm sure somebody will remind me here. So I am going to call the meeting to order. Reg Foster here.
Here. And her here.
Janice Bennett here.
All right, Janice. And how's the signal coming through loud and clear, Janice, with our
Yes, it's
technology?
pretty well.
Right, super. All right. A little echo in here too. That's another thing, noticed.
I can hear the echo, definitely.
Reverberant, so interesting. So the first agenda item are announcements for the chair. The only last minute announcement that came through actually today is that we received a DHCD's approval of what they call waiver type 1, which we have to do every year because we already have a tenant commissioner that had been elected. Every year of her term, we had to apply to have that waiver renewed, and that letter just came in earlier today. I forwarded it to the commissioner, so that we tick that box and move on from there. I don't have any other announcements, so we'll go right to resident input. Is Jessica here or not?
I believe she's on the way.
Is here we go. Sue has her hand up. Okay, great. Sue, just a moment here. Talk, right? Yep. We should be able to hear you.
Yep, can you hear me?
Perfect.
I don't know why this is coming up, but anyway, I am talking on behalf of Cooksbridge Tenant Association. And Jessica, she's either going to be late or she may not be able to make it at all, so.
She's coming.
Oh, okay. We had for July and August, we had 2 casual roundtable discussions, and we had a pretty good turnout. And so we are going to be meeting with NHA and hopefully Steve on Monday at 10 o'clock, with a list of concerns. So that's all and hopefully in September, we'll be back to a more formal meeting and talking about elections, because we really need more people on our board. So hopefully we can talk to some people and get some families involved, because this is so important to them too. So anyway, that's all I had to say. Thank you.
Great. Anybody else have their hand up there?
No, that was me.
Yeah, we have,
Lower the hand.
Galaxy. How much? Sue.
So you, in the, pull the menu when you are hovering over Sue, and see the dot, dot, dot over there? No, no, you move her, Sue goes through. No, you just mute her. I'm sorry,
Oh, okay.
you know, go, roll
Yeah.
her again. All right, we'll do mute. There.
Okay.
So who do we have now?
We have, you're identified as Galaxy SA. Who are we speaking with?
I allowed Zoom permission. My name's David Shubo. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
I'm interested in meals services. I have Springwell currently. I'm interested in Meals on Wheels, and or if you have any resources on other ways I can get ready-made meals. Oxford Press put out a thing that said a service that said ready-made meals are the best healthy provider for nutritional value. I was just wondering other options for ready-made services.
Okay, you have Springwell already?
I have Springwell.
So you're working
Yes.
with them. They should be able to set up a Meals on Wheels for you.
Okay,
And if they don't, give our office a call next week. After Monday, our service coordinator will be back on Tuesday. But they should be able to set up Meals on Wheels for you.
thank you.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, we have Ross.
Okay, Ross, we should be able to hear you at this point.
Unmute. How are we doing? Can you hear me?
Perfectly, yes.
Oh, great. Okay. I don't know whether this microphone or the other one is working. Let me see if I can, let's see.
Going very clearly, so I just stick with whatever you got there.
Okay, I'll leave it alone.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Thank you much again, Cheryl, for the excellent minutes and so forth. There is one thing I would want to amplify because it's a larger issue, and that was the matter of the rat. I didn't present that observation as a complaint. If anything, the complaint is more to do with the larger issue of waste, waste management, food waste disposal, which is probably bringing the rats in. As I've learned from a representative of the health department who was here doing the once a month first Thursday of the month blood pressure checks. She told me that if the town has a rat problem, it's mostly associated with dumpsters at restaurants where food is thrown in. And it's very similar to our situation with the dumpster and the food. So that's something that needs to be pursued really in a larger way, because there's a lot of ways to handle food. As a landlord myself and working with landlords, we always wanted to have disposals in the kitchen sinks so that we wouldn't have garbage in people's apartments or outside, and the garbage would not go down without a disposal, so you could prevent any blockage on the sink, which is a problem often. So at any rate, I just wanted to amplify that. We're going to continue to work with Center at the Heights because it probably is likely that they're going to provide more consistent help and staff than the housing authority's been able to. There's been such a turnover that, and also, let's see. Anyway, that we'd like to work with the rest of the community as well. I liked hearing that there was well, first of all, I'd like to request that Jan Wortman's report be made available to the residents. I think we have an interest in what sort of issues have brought up. And as well as the idea of including residents in this sort of discussion as we go along. The idea of a resident-centered mission, the mission statement. And I want to thank, let me see here, get on the right page.
Just want to let you know while you're looking, your 3 minutes are up there, Ross, so we can kind of wrap it up. That would be great.
Yeah, okay. Well, that's the main thing, that we try and focus on a resident-centered approach that we and I understand that Cambridge Housing Authority has developed a little bit of you know some of the concerns and issues there. So I hope that discussion can go forward. All right.
Thanks so much.
That's it. Thank you.
We'll put you back on mute here. On the Wharton report that came up last month, as we all sort of saw in the minutes, and Ross made the same request. And one of the things we discussed is that I think, Janice, you were going to take the lead in taking a look and adding maybe another section that talks about resident roles and responsibilities, sort of the same level, high level bullet detail there. I'm wondering if you had a chance to do that. Janice, if you're still there. Are you still there? You shouldn't have to turn her on and off. She should just be there. Yeah, go into this list and see if she's still there. This one here. She's dropped out. Okay. All right, well, we'll hold that question for Janice when she gets back here. Jessica, I called upon you and you weren't quite here yet, but you are now. So why don't we, fate worse than death around this place there. It used to be nice a year ago, but we had COVID to deal with. So what the heck? Do you have anything you want to offer report wise tonight?
As far as the tenants association?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
we are still in that resident
okay.
inputs.
Well, I had asked you to talk if I.
And she did. I did.
So, yes. I would.
Super. Okay, great. Any other hands up there? Okay.
Just the two.
You can, in those ... you put the hand down there. People forget to do it. Lori, yeah. Super. So let's go on to the next agenda item A here, which is the review and approval of our warrants, which are in your packet. I just call everybody's attention that somehow the packet page numbering got off about two pages somehow. But if you add 2 pages to the index here, you'll find what you're looking for. Do any of the commissioners have any questions about any of these? Let's take the Housing Authority warrant first. Yes.
Sorry, page 10.
So it would be page. Oh, this one doesn't have numbers on it, so that's.
No, that one doesn't.
Yeah, okay, so now I'm thwarted here. Because that's my board packet, it's fine, I certainly renumbered everything, so I can stuff. So it should be 2 pages, like page 9, maybe I would guess. Looks like this.
Yeah, there's 10 here.
Yep.
Okay, just a question about the Blair Tavern expense, remember 54 Captain Robinson Drive. Oh, yeah, 3439. Just wondering, I thought we were.
Janice was next to me, she said she can see and hear, but she's blocked. I don't know.
So did you enable down here in the bottom, enable attendees to turn on their the bottom of this, no, it's on the panels menu, sorry. And, yeah, and allow panelists to turn on the video.
Yes, sure.
Okay, then, she's blocked. She can't get in at all, but
I don't know why I'm-
you can send, yeah,
She said no, she heard you. She said no.
but her video is not working here. See, so the first, see, this is the,
Did she, Janice, have you tried to go out and back in?
She said yes, my video and audio was good.
yeah, no, so, also you have to, go to attendees here. Go to
Is.
promote panels, you must,
Yeah, she must have.
yeah,
Came back and under that.
all right, now go to up this one here.
She comes.
Yeah, no, one more adjustment, yeah, now go to the dot. And, do that one. No, the first one,
Oh, there she is.
okay. Now,
I'm back.
All right, go to Sue and go to the sex, let me show you here, maybe it's the best, yeah, remove, yeah. So that takes them out of the screen there. Yeah, so that's, you know, when you promote an attendee, you know, ask them to talk when they go onto the screen, then they, you know, they come off here. And then if they talk again, they can go back on here. Okay. All right. So we had, a question on the floor here.
Like we putting all tiles in and not carpets. I like carpets. So I don't know what you ended up with. Is this a change again or?
I'm sorry, you're looking at the carpet,
Clear.
carousel, flare carpet. We are,
So it looked like the whole unit has been carpeted. Which I know the residents would prefer rather than tile, but I thought we were doing tile.
I'm not quite sure what the question is. Can you maybe state it
I
again?
thought we had established that as we were redoing units, there was going to be tile flooring, not carpet.
Yes.
it may not be carpet there. Gary, 54 CRC. We have
That's Flair Carpet is just the name of their company. They did we did a new kitchen carpet in the kitchen.
Not carpet, but Flair Carpets did the work, is that right?
Right, that's just the name of their company.
Right. They're a flooring company, they're not just carpets.
Oh, I see. So you put down.
We put it in tile, yeah, that was in the kitchen floor.
We actually did the same floor that you're on right now.
Okay.
Great.
Thank you.
All right, any other questions on this warrant? I then make a motion to approve this warrant. Do I hear a second?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying, oh, no.
Roll
And I will
call.
call the roll, and Reg Foster votes aye.
Penny Burke votes aye.
Ed Schuyler votes aye.
Janice Bennett votes aye.
Okay, and it passes unanimously. So I'm now going to go to the High Rock Homes LLC warrant, which is on page, I would guess, page number 22. I see Eleanor is looking at it.
Yeah.
And any questions about any of the? Hearing none, I make a motion that we approve the High Rock Homes LLC warrant. Do I hear a second?
Second.
I will call the roll. Reg Foster votes aye.
Eleanor Evans votes aye. Penny Burke votes aye.
Janice Bennett, aye.
Great. And I'm just going to ask our faithful staff a procedural question, which is for centuries, decades, eons, we voted the specific amount of the warrant, or the total amount, and I noticed it had been changed in the agenda this time. Was that a procedural change that you're recommending, or just something, an oversight?
So we've done the resolutions before, so we decided to not do the resolutions anymore. Is that what you're referring to?
That's not what I'm asking about.
Numbers change?
I'm sorry, that's not what you're asking.
No.
Okay.
But I noticed the resolutions were gone as well.
Yeah.
But in what the board has done in the past is approved the specific total amount of the the warrants that we're approving, some $300,000 of means empty frat cents.
Right.
And there's nothing to refer to with respect to that adds everything up. There's no resolution, as you pointed out, and there was a little summary in the agenda that added up all the different amounts that we were approving, on a summary basis, the payroll, all the checks, the Section 8 voucher totals and so forth.
Let's see.
Okay, so you had a separate tally sheet, if you will.
So you
Because
just
the last
look-
2 months, we've had a couple of extra checks that we had to, that were not on the main warrant.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking they got added in at the end.
No, it's just you changed it. If you go look at last, we shouldn't waste our time on it.
No,
Not
yeah.
if you have no knowledge of this, but I just asked the board, I'm thinking it's nice to have all this detail, but I think we ought to be approving a specific dollar amount, that it's going to be a cash that's going to go out the door. It's usually $3,000-4,000 every month, but am I being a little bit am I overdoing it in my thoughts? What does everybody else think?
I think it makes sense to approve it, because there's no one. Then if there's a lawyers and not.
All right,
If I could, I would expect that you would go on the exact amount, so I need to look at what happened, because I'm not.
so just for the purpose of doing the minutes for this next time around, I would, request our secretary to, actually insert the proper amount that will be in the minutes, and then when we come around to the minutes, we'll actually sort of time it down, nail it down as to what we're approving even. Yeah. Okay, super. And then, you did take the resolutions out as well. I was wondering about that.
So that's the old guy sitting here. What you approve is a check register is basically what you're approving. I don't know of other housing authorities locally that use a separate warrant type of thing that we do. We seem to be doing extra steps here. I was trying to simplify a little bit.
The extra steps is not just for this, but every resolution that we're, anticipating that the board would approve, we would print it out in the agenda. So that, the wording of what is exactly being approved is sort of pre-thought through from a staff point of view. The reason that, that has proven very useful in the past is that on occasion we get all bollocks stuff trying to word resolution real time on the fly. What's a good example of that? Or I know, for example, when we're proving partial payments of progress payments for contractors and something like that, you want to make sure it's worded correctly, that you're just, this is, for 50% completion, reading such and so milestone and so forth and so on. So as chair, I have found it very useful for that additional staff work to be done in advance, and then I can just sort of read the resolution. Obviously, something like the warrant, it's very simple, straightforward. The minutes are very simple and straightforward. Although we have known to get behind on minutes and have 2 or 3 sets of minutes to approve it. same time, and, you know, it's even valuable in that circumstance, so. But, you know, what is best from everybody's point of view here?
I like that, idea, I actually do.
Well, if you're
It's very-
approving partial payment for a contract, that should be a separate motion.
Exactly.
Yeah, so that's.
But otherwise, you know, it's a chair where I'm making the motion, or somebody is sort of making the motion, but not you or Cheryl. And sometimes it doesn't get worded quite right, you know.
And it's helpful to me, when the resolution is.
Okay, we'll revisit this because I know we're talking different things here. Because I want to get it right for you, but the move, what we're looking to do here is on the regular bill schedule. Is that, you know, we're approving the payments. In reality, in the real world, we can't wait a month to pay our vendors, which is why I brought up the idea of electronic signatures. And we have something to report on that. That's not paying off a large portion of a modernization of something is not the same thing.
No,
The check may run through it, but it's a separate resolution. That's the way you would have to do it. But the trying to simplify the bill schedule so that we can pay our bills on time is what my goal is here.
Right.
Again, taking away the larger bills that are over certain limits. But like, for instance, it came up, the electric bill this month was $25,000.
huge.
Okay,
A lot of
so
air conditioning.
a lot of air conditioning, yeah.
Yeah.
You know, we have a lot of seniors that have to pay air conditioning, pay the electric bill. So that's, you know, that would normally be above all the limits. So one of the things we want to come to is to approve us paying bills up to a certain limit, with the exception of the utility bills, which can be paid as received. That's what we'll come to as we'll just.
Well, my suggestion is, why don't we take this all offline, you know, work out, you know, all the pros and cons. I think everybody wants to be open to new ways of doing things. I think we're about to see some reports later on that have been reworked and I think are quite good. Just to, you know, give a sneak preview there. And then we can come back to the board and just say, hey, this seems like the right blend of, you know, new ideas and old ideas and so forth and so on. So I think we're at the minutes. Okay, thank you. Yeah, somebody with page numbers can say,
I got it right.
an agenda ahead of, you know, item ahead of me, that would be great. So we have the wonderful minutes of our 7/21 meeting.
Hey, Reg.
Yes,
Before we get to that, I would like to answer and comment on that question.
thank you for reminding me, because I was trying to remember that before we got off on our detour on.
Yeah, because I did research it and,
Mhm.
I happen to
Let's
remember,
pose the question, let's pose the question again, for those who might not remember it, which is, I'd ask you if you'd had the chance to follow up last month. You were going to take the lead in adding this section to the John Wharton guidelines that.
yes, because,
Yeah, that would cover sort of resident roles and responsibilities at the same level of detail. Go ahead.
yes, because all the roles were mentioned except for the roles of the resident.
Exactly.
And I'm not sure if I brought that up and brought it upon myself to do the research, but I have. And I did recall that clause in my lease going back 23 years ago that said the rights and responsibilities of the residents. And
Mhm.
it just so happens that NHA had sent out a new lease to everybody, and I went right for that clause and I did read it. And I really didn't see anything that should change. However, I further researched it through Melking Institute with Sarah Byrne. And she said, Janice, you went to the exact right place. And so I can only say that maybe all of us should review that clause. And I believe it would be the board's responsibility to change anything they want to input from residents. So maybe it should be reassigned to the TO. But that's what I've come up with.
Great, well, and that's wonderful you've done that. I think our degrees of freedom for changing the lease are very narrow, whether the state lease or the federal lease, they're a little different from each other. And the Workman thing isn't so much a legal document, it's just sort of the rules of the road, kind of ways we interact with each other and who's responsible for what. And so I think we can take your research and maybe for our next meeting, tee up, if this is will of the commissioners, another section that is tenants, resident roles and responsibilities. And we can look to adding it then. So why don't we just, continue that action item from last month, get your input that you've researched there, Janice, and maybe Cheryl and Steve can help us out. And then we'll have an actual document that has that appended on in draft form, and then we can adopt that and put, and then respond to Ross's request, which is obviously make it available to the tenants and residents in some fashion that makes sense. Does that make sense for everybody? Great. All right. Thank you.
On the
Jan.
other hand,
Yeah.
there was the responsibility of the housing authority to the residents too. So while we're doing one, we might as well do two.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And there's a different version. My ears hear something different also from you, which is I haven't done it for several years, but it's kind of interesting to read the lease agreements between the housing authority and the tenants. And to see just what are, the legal rights and responsibilities. And if, I haven't actually, I looked at that many years ago. But, if any of the commissioners would like to have a copy of those documents, just, here's what we ask our tenants to sign. I think that can be distributed to people and see if anybody, there's also sort of a training education dimension to that for us as commissioners. So if that's what you're suggesting, Janice, I think that's a good idea.
Yep. I think we all should read that because and I don't think it's been changed in many, many, many years, and it's not up to one person.
Well, we have to use I think we have a lot of regulations that, require us to use certain, established.
It's a federal
terms
lease.
and
I don't
formats.
think we can overstep the Fed.
Yeah. And there is a similar but not identical state version that is, approved by DHCD for us to use here.
Okay.
So why don't we distribute copy those leases to
So
everybody?
the lease is actually a state farm lease.
Mhm.
The lease that we have in place now
Mhm.
came out of the Quara legislation in 1998.
Mhm.
Karen Alice came to our community when we were, as a tenant association, deciding whether we were going to go with this federal lease or the state lease.
Mhm.
So the housing authority opted for the state lease. Karen Allers went over line by line every item in the lease, which is the residence contract with the housing agency. So it's a state lease, not a federal lease.
Well, so something I didn't know, but let me interrupt you and say, well, the topic is not on the agenda.
It's not.
Yeah, and you started, maybe a topic that would be interesting in spending some time.
That it is.
And it would make a lot more sense if everybody had a copy of the document. So all I'm trying to do is move on and suggest that you send copies out and we can talk about whether there's interest in doing a little bit of education and history and so forth. All right, so moving on. I think we're at the minutes here, page number 25 and the July 21st meeting. Does anybody have any comments or corrections? Penny?
On page 28,
Mhm.
164 Chambers Street is not Chambers Street, it's Linden Street.
That's true.
And in that building is at the top of Linden Street, put a lot of it there, view of the square
Mhm.
building and has nothing really in it. It may be used for storage. But
Any other corrections or minutes? Hearing none, I make a motion that we approve the minutes of the July 21st meeting. Do I hear a second?
second,
Any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call vote, Rich Foster votes aye.
Any further votes aye?
Janice Bennett,
And
aye.
Janice?
Aye.
Terrific. We got it. So we move now to the executive director's report. I'm gonna turn the gavel, the megaphone over to Steve here.
Right, for your. Gonna have to have a third person. in Technology.
It takes a few meetings. Yeah, I was pretty pummel fingered myself at first.
Back and forth. I apologize for that. So we have the monthly financials and the quarterly financials are included actually, which are very similar, just different format. Yeah, so the
So quarterly financials on page 47, I would guess. Any comments on the new?
those should be correct.
Oh, great, okay.
Very close there. So these are the financials. Again, the monthlies are the ones you see every month, obviously. Run the budget reports, talk about dwelling receipts. We're looking at, for instance, for the state development, we are over in our collections. But subsidy hasn't come through yet, so we're down on collecting the subsidy. That's a movable number because state doesn't always give us their money on a timely basis.
Any questions on the reports? Especially the new quarterly report that starts page 45, I guess. I mean, I can make a comment. It looks like this. Okay. And it's right after the minutes. It's right after it's after the financial report. And I apologize for leaving my board back behind with all the numbering. It's like this. Okay. So this covers the first half of the year. It's the second quarter report. While you're finding it there, I will just comment. There you go. I think it looks like it. You got it. You know, you have started revenues here. What I found really interesting, this is Linden Chambers, is the actual today is our revenues are $429.97 per unit per month, right there, for our 152 units. And then I can see right here very easily that right above it, the operating subsidy is $134.80 per unit per month. And I don't remember seeing something like this so clearly before, and I thank you for introducing this, where this basically says that, you know, the revenue, you know, the rents are only covering about, and I wrote the exact number down, I think it's about 68% of the actual money that's coming in here. 32% of it's from subsidy, which really, you know, is useful information. I think of housing working information. If you go to this next page where it says at the bottom of page 2, it adds up all the expenses per month. And what you see there is total expenses per month for cap is $440.85 a month. Okay, so that shows you that we're, even with, we're still a little bit behind. We need more subsidy to cover that. But it shows another thing, which is the people who are paying rents in our units at Linden Chambers, which we've known forever, of course, are people who really, really need the help of public housing. There's a very low rent for a studio apartment in the Needham area here, so even a tiny studio apartment.
The PUM, is that per unit? What's the understanding?
Month, per unit per month. I would encourage, and let Steve move on, but to look at this a little more carefully now that that he's pulled it together for us. Steve,
I can't take credit for it. These reports going quarterly to the state, and they have always.
But we'll give you credit for showing it to the board for the first time. How about
I'm
that?
sorry, that would be normal behavior on my part.
And then there's a balance sheet. And now, also I see this is just for state units. Is
Right.
there a similar kind of quarterly report for federal units?
There is not.
No. Well, why don't we move along, and I just, some people can kind of take a more of a look at, might have some more questions about it next month here, but I think it's terrific myself, so thank you very much. So your next one here is personnel changes, monthly management report. Sorry.
Monthly management report, just showing the vacancies at the end of July were down by 6. And I would also tell you before Nada yells to the Zoom here that we're down to less than that at this point. And something that she is working very hard at. And
This occupancy report looks like this.
yeah,
The question back on page 61 with housing rents terms and receipt. Page 61, you jump down.
Well, we're here.
Yeah.
We're here.
that's the next page.
Yeah, we're gonna do that one next, Ed, okay?
Yeah.
So we're just looking at the occupancy report, which shows how it's been going, it's gone down from 32 vacant units all the way down to 11 vacant units at this point. And that this is the right trend, obviously, so this is great. And it shows it by, development, by Linden, Chambers, Matthews, Cook, hierarchy, Seabeds. And you, thank you, and you immediately made me get my calculator out, because it's 11 is the numerator. An important question is, what is the denominator? If that's 11 out of 22, then it's a terrible number. But the denominator for the Needham Housing Authority, was sort of burned into my memory banks from the PRIs, 296 units when you count it with all of these things. And so that makes 11 is about a little less than 3% vacancy, which is about as low as I think you're gonna ever see that number.
Yeah.
So,
Although right now it's lower. Again, right at this moment, because we're down. Nada, what did we say, 6 today? Yeah, done.
Yeah, as of today, we have 6 vacancies.
6 vacancies.
that's great.
So, now, at the end of the month, we always pick up a few more, hopefully not too many, but Nate is filling them, and Gary and his crew are getting them ready. This is a multi-personnel movement, and they've been doing a great job. And Gary's been short-handed for a while, and we lost one fellow last week and hired, and the new fellow started today, but we're still down. That was replacing the original person. So we've had a young man for the summer, named Jason Cupwell, as a matter of fact, who has done incredibly well with us. He goes back to school in a couple of weeks, so we're hoping to get the next hire as soon as we can.
Any other comments on the occupancy? I think that's a happy report. Work orders is the next report. We have, I've noticed, just to call this out, 0 open work orders at the end of July.
Yes.
Really? That must be kind of an artificial
anomaly.
thing. Yeah, anomaly.
Well,
That's the word.
But it's, it's there. I mean, I will, put it this way, July, the good months tend to be, you don't have any heat calls in July.
Mhm.
So there are a lot of things that don't happen, but certainly the numbers,
So very aggressive.
it's, yes, thank you, yeah.
Good job, Gary.
I might want to have something to say about that.
Go ahead.
There was a girl at last month's meeting that I guess she was upset and walked out. I think you all recall that. Well, there was a meeting on roundtable this past Tuesday, and that same girl was there and said that her work order had not been completed. It was a mold issue. She said it hadn't been completed, and they had not been, or they had been shunning her. So, and she was still very upset about the situation. And I did advise her that a grievance was one of her options. And I also advised her another option was to get a hold of Steve. But she seemed to be very, very unsatisfied that they didn't follow up. I guess they're still missing something. And so,
Well, like you said, the best thing is to follow up directly with the office. Not wait
Yeah.
for a board meeting here.
Right, and that's what she certainly is welcome to do and knows how to do that. And if you'd like to, I can't really address individuals here in a public meeting, but if Janice would like to give me a call, I can get into a little more detail with that.
sure.
Okay, next report is public housing rents charged and received.
Question.
Go ahead.
We're in wonderful shape except for HRH, which is 76.4%. And all of the other units and neighborhoods are in the 90s. And I'm just wondering, is there a particular problem with that?
In that small sample there's an issue with one particular tenant. So throwing that number, it's a small, HRH 2 is the smaller of the two, right? And there's
The number is small.
yeah, that's
I understand. Thank you.
I'm going to call your attention that this summary goes with a detailed report on the next couple of pages. That, when I say detail, it's detailed by project, but not, by development, not detailed by individual here. You can sort of see that anomaly that you identified there in one of the HRH ones, the HRH 2, yeah. So
Moving on to the accommodation report.
mhm.
The column. Sorry. Tenant rent, is what has been collected?
So we're on this page. Everybody, look on here, the last summary.
the last
page.
It's federal.
You're talking about the column called tenant rent there?
Yes.
Yes.
So the question is, does tenant rent represent what has been collected?
no, that represents what their monthly rent is.
That's the building.
That's building too.
And then the balance would represent what?
Current balance on the account.
Yes, two.
So if you look at the very top of the larger sheet, you see a tenant rent of 700 with a balance of 13. So that's almost 2 months behind that.
Now, on the bottom, hierarchy for the state's total balance is 12. I can't get these numbers to match up. If you take the 3 past due 30, 60, 90, that totals 4881. And if we add the billing to that, it doesn't equal the balance. Because the balance comes out at 10,868. I couldn't get the numbers no matter how I put them together. I couldn't get a right total. I'm just wondering.
So if I hear you right, Ed, what you're saying is the sum of the three buckets,
Right.
0 to 30, 30 to 60,
Yeah.
and 60 to 90,
That's 4881.
should add to the number that's the balance. It should be the sum of those numbers, and it isn't.
Yeah.
So why don't we take a look at that? I'm gonna take a guess at why that might be. There's not a over 90-day column, and I'm wondering if it has something to do with that.
That's where you're going. Yeah, we don't have, on my system, on another system that I've used in the past, it would have been 90 days plus, a 90 plus. column.
Exactly.
This is not, it says
It's
60 to
missing.
90 days, so, and that's off our software.
So maybe take a
Have to
look at
see if
that.
we- Yeah,
you know, 'cause
that can
it-
be
it-
altered.
you know,
Good catch on that, though, Ed.
That was just. One column there.
Yeah.
And then the other sort of anomaly that I noticed there was like this one here, where we have a negative balance. So does that mean we owe a tenant almost $2,000?
That means they've paid ahead.
Paid ahead, okay.
We don't
Yeah.
owe.
All right. All right, so that's not an indicator of anything other than they paid in advance, which doesn't sound.
What? We're frozen.
Yeah, they froze.
They froze. Can you hear me, Nada?
Yeah.
Are we gonna get it back?
Oh,
my
no.
God.
I was shaking my computer too, and I saw you doing it at the same time.
I was about to do it, then you popped up. Oh, God. Oh, is that anything? Oh, just. It's on Q&A. I don't know. Can you hear me, Nada?
Yeah, I could hear you.
Oh, all right, because for a minute there, you went out and something else came up and
Mhm.
I don't know. Is this the end of our meeting? I don't know. The plug couldn't have fallen out because we wouldn't be here. Let me text
Oh.
somebody. I just texted Jess.
Yeah. Don't know.
I don't either.
But it's
Oh.
weird because it's showing that I'm the host.
Oh,
now.
Jessica's just said something happened. They're trying to fix it now.
Oh, okay.
That's all it'll let me know.
Yeah.
Oh. So what's new?
I know, right? Nothing. But I'm gonna go take a break and smoke a cigarette, so I'll be
Go
back.
ahead. Go
I'll be
ahead.
back.
Doorbell.
Okay, we are back.
All right.
We should. Chairman, know that no business undertaken during.
That was our.
What the heck happened?
Have Scott come in here and fine tune the Wi-Fi coverage here, because I noticed it was only like 2 bars over here. And do some testing, make sure it's gets a little more bulletproof here next time we're here. So Janice, what were we talking about when we dropped you there?
I think we were on the
Personnel.
Personnel,
Have we finished the
personnel change,
personnel?
yeah, after
Okay.
Danny and maintenance hire, and I think we're on the Linden Chambers issue.
Okay, thank you. So Linden Chambers camera update.
Let me, if I can
Yeah.
finish that, because I didn't finish. Laurie started as our church coordinator. Danny Mann had given his notice and was gone to work at another housing authority. And we've hired William Gaffredo. He's joined us, and so far so good. Gary's happy with him. It's fine. Seems like a really good young man. So looking forward to that.
You left off where you were saying that we were still down a man.
Oh, he is still down.
Yeah, we're still down.
Next, I have a note from HUD. On the back of that column, that acknowledging that our audit report that was prepared by Markham contained no audit findings, question cost, or other conditions, and therefore no responses required. Just, it's great to get a note.
Super.
Saying
You skipped over a few agenda items
sorry.
here. So the next one here is Linden Chambers camera issue update.
yeah, so I'm gonna ask Gary to come on.
Yeah, I guess the residents aren't too happy over there.
So at this point, the cameras are all installed and everything's up and running, but the Wi-Fi going from one building to another isn't strong enough. So they want to enter into having a new antenna that will give us a bigger distance. The DVR box is back at the computer. So everything has to be by Wi-Fi and thrown back to the computer. And we're like 138 Linden Street is so far away, it's not giving us a good signal back to the community though. So they bought a new antenna or ordered a new to see if this will resolve the issue. We haven't paid that. We've only gave them a partial payment. We haven't released any more money until this issue is resolved.
Somebody needs to mute here. Yeah.
Okay.
So, okay. Sorry that's happening. It's always like it. Look, we just using this room for the first time and look, we crashed. So, you know, this is what happens. So, but hopefully we're going to use all our efforts to get it fixed up as soon as possible.
We will. That's the Wi-Fi at Linden Chambers is not our issue. It's the contractor for the
Right.
camera job. The Wi-Fi here will be our issue. I'm not sure why it's not strong, but we will address that.
All right, the next is bank issues.
So I have forms that I'd like to, if the board so chooses, just have the board members sign, which will allow us to capture electronically the signatures for check writing. And it turns out we thought we were going to have to go through a stamp type proposal, but our software actually has the capability of putting signatures on the checks. So that will, you won't have to sign you know, 85 checks a month or whatever it is. And,
I think that should go up for discussion.
Yeah, okay, so you start, Janet, you have a comment?
Yeah, I kind of like to see what I'm signing. Anybody else? I don't mind the work.
Eleanor, you had a comment?
I was gonna ask about the internal controls for making sure that the, you know, nobody's applying somebody's signature who hasn't approved it.
So the way it works in housing authorities and other things now is the signatures go on and the board approves the bill schedule, usually after the bills have gone out. This routine bills, this is not the larger, you know, 20,000 plus. And that's how, well, I mean, it's how business works. Obviously, we have issues with vendors not getting paid timely, which in our business should never happen. So it will be a decision of the board, but I would highly recommend this work for, it's worked for a long time for a lot of housing authorities. And it really comes out of, you know, when you think of a housing authority like a Cambridge or a Worcester or Boston, the commissioners aren't, well, Boston doesn't have commissioners, but the larger ones would never have commissioners come in and sign checks. It goes back to the creation of housing authorities in the 40s in Massachusetts. It's really approving the bill schedule, and if someone's paying a bill that they shouldn't be paying, then there's other ways to address that, including, you know, disciplining your director if he's bringing bills or she's bringing bills that shouldn't be paid. Again, we faced this here several times where we have vendors looking for payment, and I know, you know, we happen to be a little fortunate that Penny and Ed come together to sign them, and we have 2 signatures. But in the overall scheme of things, we apparently has been operating here for a while with issuing checks once a month. And I just, that's not a way to run railroad, and it just doesn't work that way. But again, that's not my final decisions, the board's, and we'll respect the decision, but it's something that I've worked with for a long time, and never had an issue with.
So are you as an executive director ultimately responsible for the checks that have been signed?
Absolutely, yes.
So I guess my question is, I don't have any, I mean, I think that streamlining projects are done, and I think that vendors and paying on time is a good idea. But my question is more about, like, if each of the board members is signing to have our signatures go on checks electronically, then whoever signatures go on the check needs to be aware of what checks their signatures go on.
Right, and you know, usually it would be the, you know, where we were, the direct, my name would have gone on, and nor would the treasurer.
Yeah.
Or 2 board members would be like the chair and the treasurer. It's always the treasurer would always, that signature one would always go to some board. We don't just randomly pick.
Yeah.
You assign, you know, 2 signatures to go on for a time certain, which would generally run with the board elections. So yeah, whoever's name is being used would know that. We're not going to just randomly choose. You know, it's not a randomizer thing. It's a very deliberate decision on whose signatures go on.
So we will continue having a check register as we currently have. And then that backup, I like that, because it explains more what the invoice is.
Yeah, you would have the same reports, absolutely. That doesn't.
Are you talking about what was in the packet today, or you're talking about what's in the folder there? That packet, so that packet you're satisfied with? Yeah.
There's great information on that packet.
But Steve, you were saying in terms of having it done more frequently than once a month.
Running checks more than once a month,
Oh.
yeah, so, you know, ideally we'd pay checks once, we'd pay bills once a week.
Yeah.
But right now, you know, we could write a check on the 1st of the month, you know, today's the 18th. You would the practice was to hold the checks until it was signed and approved. So you're already 2 weeks behind in paying whatever the place it is.
Well, the internal controls point that you're making from an audit point of view, is really a separation of responsibilities. And so, 2 physical signatures on a physical check is what we've been doing. It goes back to the internet age. And I hear Steve suggesting that we in the strongest way, even though he's a very polite person, that we have to find a way to change so that we can pay our vendors more promptly. Otherwise, they're just not gonna want to do business with us. They'll do business with somebody else and we'll lose our good vendors. That's what I hear you saying.
It is, and I forgot one additional thing, and that is the purchase order system, which we've started to use in September 1. No bill will be paid without a purchase order, except for some contracting bills and certain professional bills. But like anything you see for Home Depot supply will have a local purchase order attached to it, and that signature goes through the director. So I sign that before there's ever a payment as well. So that's another level of control. It's not here.
Yeah.
That has not been here. And, it's a very important one. As I know Cheryl, she's very insistent on it. She's having worked with the school department. They're very.
Yeah, I think that's a good segue into what I was going to say next. Actually, in one of my earlier incarnations, I designed and implemented financial management systems for municipalities and states. My first job was for New York City financial management system. They went bankrupt in the 80s, and I was part of the team that designed and implemented their first budgeting and financial management system. And so from that background of experience, I think the next thing I heard, just by way of summary, is you're commenting on what Worcester and Boston does and others do, and there's a big difference between them and us in that they have many employees, and even in the old days or the new days, they can have a separation of responsibilities in a fashion that we can't achieve. That's always been, I think, part of the fiduciary concern, which I think is a legitimate one, which is we never want to be in a position where somebody was sneaking around doing something behind your or Cheryl's back, and then all of a sudden, $100,000 has disappeared and it's your fault. So we get to fire you, but that still doesn't, really quite address the issue. That's not quite the right solution, which is what you suggested, that we could do that. But I think the point that's being raised is, how can we replicate that separation of powers? Nobody wants to do the check signing anymore. It's a pain. Reason, it's definitely pain for us to do. It seems to be for our vendors and so forth. So, and I do know how the modern systems are now designed even for small organizations where there are 2 individuals who are unrelated and who can log into their own individual accounts with their secret passwords, and they can say, yes, I authorize, my signature or Eleanor's signature to be, put on this, list of checks that we've been reviewing in our packet. And I'm thinking that where we need to go is something that is, using the systems and the capabilities we have, something like that, where, no, you don't usually find commissioners or boards of directors of private companies signing checks, but you do find these 2 separate people who have nothing to do with each other and, wouldn't be able to collude with each other and so forth. You want to sort of replicate that sort of function. And then we never, ever get to that place that none of us ever want to be, should there be some, temptation to do so. And I don't know what this, answer, the actual specific answer is, but would it be okay if we research that a little bit more?
Absolutely.
And found this thing where, and I'm just making this up, but the treasurer, Ed, in this case, right now, has viewed this list, and said, and not just viewed it once a month at the, but viewed it once a week and said, yep, I'm comfortable putting my John Hancock on that, or authorizing you to put your John Hancock and Cheryl, maybe with two separate employees, the executive director and the assistant executive director, find some way to do that. And not, we can take this offline and see if we can bake it a little bit more and come to a place that makes sense in September. And then, I hate to say this, but what was the big news this week in the newspaper? Does anybody know? The trillions of dollars that went out in the Paycheck Protection Plan, what happened to them? There were, the financial controls, everybody was on the honor system, and now they're chasing around hundreds of millions of dollars of fraudulent Paycheck Protection Plan loans. That's what happens if you don't have that separation of powers from those, internal controls in place. And
The other
when-
thing I was worried about is, if somebody uses my signature, I don't want to be responsible for pay back any funds.
Well, and exactly, and even if that's just a hypothetical comment, it's an accurate comment. But
Yeah.
I could go one moment further. There is no organization I know of that I've ever been a part of in the nonprofit sector, or and you consult those people all the time, Eleanor, or the private sector or anything, that has board members signing checks. It's kind of unique to us, so it behooves us to find a different, better way that still preserves that oversight function. My humble opinion here. So let's take it offline, come back with the answer. And I think the board, as I hear it, agrees that we should have a weekly check run, is what you would typically do. And all the good stuff, it just goes out routinely. Anything there's a question about or requires a board approval or something like that gets held, so that 90% of the stuff is going through right away. And there is no easy ability for somebody to get tempted to siphon the funds off into a private account where they don't belong.
No, I don't disagree with that. We'll come up with a policy and, as I said, we'll have the first order of these things going into effect, but also just, our landlord, to kind of segue in.
Yeah, that's the next one. One of the
But our
next ones.
landlord had, under the agreement that was made, they require electronic payment. And when I took over here, we stopped that. We asked it till September 1st, and we agreed to it on. Now we're making arrangements to pay her electronically this September, but there was a movement here. Again, prior to April, that the bills were going to be paid electronically. And that's a risk that I wasn't willing to, we stopped that right away because, we order pre-numbered checks and, we have certain
Part of the controls.
That would just kind of evaporate in electronic payment. So that's just, this is not a lack of, I mean, we believe, and we talked about it. We care about the quality of control and controls in place, but we also want to get it so that we can kind of operate a little bit more efficiently and a lot more efficiently.
And wouldn't you say that's the perfect example of what you're trying to say, which is we got to pay the rent every month, just like our tenants do, on time, just like our tenants have to there. And it shouldn't require us to approve, a check and write a physical check signatures to do that, for the same number every month. And the same thing for the water bill, and the same thing for the retirement contributions, and the same thing for a whole bunch of, probably, 75% of what we do here. All right,
So mixing that with, again, the bank thing, we met this week with TD Bank. They're preparing a proposal for us. Right now, our monthly fees with Citizens Bank have been $500 plus. So in the first year, we'll have saved the full month rent payment because there will be no charges. Because of our money situation, the money we have and we're a nonprofit and the way it boils down. We'll show you the proposal, but when it comes in, but there should be no monthly bank charges. With the exception of actually, if check bounces or something, there may be some, but that would be.
Okay, onward to, I think we did 6 audit update and 7 mission statement discussion.
I just kept that on the agenda. I don't know if the board wants to discuss any more. I don't know if we finished that.
I don't know that we finished anything, but I don't think we have anything to discuss either. So why don't we carry it for now? And the change of ownership, 21 Highland Circle, that just a
Yeah, that's
routine change over ownership.
Yeah, it was tied. Maria really owned 21 and 35 Highland Terrace, and the building 35 sold last week. So they've she's made a new company throwing this 21.
Okay. And number 9, easing the use of funds for affordable housing development article.
Yeah, I thought the Ballard Spar wrote an article. George Ubanas was now one of their attorneys. He formerly worked at National Narrow, so I've been George for a number of years. But this is a kind of an explanation of some of the easing of funding, and it gets into capital fund too. And I really haven't broken it down myself completely yet, but it's kind of, I thought, Mr. Chairman, you'd be interested in that.
Well, I had a chance, you said it to me a week ago, and I had a chance to review it and look into it, and basically it's not, we're taking too much time here, but what it's, there was a technicality where you had to spend all the ARPA funds by the end of 2024. The ARPA funds that were allocated to the states, and we've still got a $3 or $4 billion pile of ARPA funds that haven't been appropriated yet by the state legislature. And the money that we do have for the chambers redesign is also the first comes from ARPA funds. And the technicality was that there was a glitch in the wording that meant that the cash had to be out the door by December 31st, 2024. And people said, well, yeah, but what if we want to use this money to pay, a 20-year bond? What if we basically decide to use it for that, but we actually don't pay it out until after the deadline? So they did some fixing to make it possible to do that. So you're going to use the ARPA funds to borrow money to fix things up and, pay it back. All right, so then events upcoming.
Yeah, great. We're just again, got one for you. We've scheduled a barbecue for Linden Chambers for August 30th, from noon to 3. I think we put a rain date for Wednesday for 31st, just to celebrate summer and the end of summer. I don't know if we celebrate the end of summer, I don't. But
This summer
yes,
we celebrate the end of the weather.
yeah, the end of hot weather. Yes,
So who's invited? And is the board invited?
just the board. No, all the residents, all the board is invited. Yes, that's why we're getting this. Yeah, board is invited to all our events. As long as you don't talk housing, just come for socialization. And that's in the chamber. So this is Blair did the flyer for us, and they went out today, and so we're excited to get some event going up there. So we'll have hamburgers and hot dogs, and Gary will be on the grill. And,
Flippin' burgers.
Flippin' burgers.
All right.
And the other event coming up will be the event here on September 13th. And that's going to be the kind of the grand opening of not only the room, but the after school program. That opening will happen that week as well. So celebrating all of that. we're inviting Representative Garlick to that, and I believe she's planning on coming, so, that will be, and the police are gonna be doing the cooking. And, we hope to have a fire truck on site as well, just kind of make it a fun day for the, fun afternoon. From 3 to 5, or 3 to, I think we're on 3 to 5. So,
Yeah.
yeah, so it'll be after school for the kids. Look forward to that. I think that's all.
There's one more event, it's not an event,
I'm sorry.
there's one more date.
Date, the, annual plan?
Yeah.
Yeah, so our next board meeting will be September 15th. And, at 7:30, and, it'll be at Linden Chambers at 7 o'clock. We put in, I'm gonna, if that's possible, to start a little bit early. Because we do have the annual plan, the state annual plan to bring up. So it'd be great if we could do that. That's done as part of a board meeting, whereas the capital plan for the federal property is not necessarily done as a part of the board meeting. But the state requires it, so, it could be a longer meeting than normal.
So make a note to adjust your calendars that we're starting at
September
7.
15th, start at 7.
And I discovered today, when I was poking around, that you can download the annual plan from the first page, homepage of the NHA website. And it's the very first new button that would be at the top of the page. And any incident report template?
I don't have the template, we started that, and I find that we have had incident reports here before, so I'm trying to find one. That I can then work off of what we used here, so that will be back at the next meeting. That's what we are. That would be something for a resident or employee to report anything that goes on to us. And more normal routine, process, rather than just so and so heard.
And then you have number 12, other. Is there any
I
other?
don't have any other.
No other.
I perhaps could say, the after-school program of orientation is going to take place on 2050. And both Brad and Noel will be playing at the same time. We'll all meet each other and who it is who's
Okay.
part of the team. And then the following Monday is the opening.
All right. Well, we'll get to more info on that at 3 on the agenda here. Great. So next, search committee status report from Rick Lico.
So I spoke with Rick yesterday, and the advertisement will be an ad going into the Narrow Monitor for a couple of editions. It won't be a full ad because they charge you. You get it free for the first 5 lines. So we're going to try to put an ad in, and we'll refer them to our website, and we'll post the posting on our website.
Great. And I went, wrote down, but my packet online, I don't have it here anymore, but I went to look in the NARO, Mass NARO, and there are 3 executive director positions open and then being advertised. So there's not a huge number right now, but it may be for the same reason we're not there, which is, the dog days of August here. So hopefully we'll get some action going next month there. Okay, we're in status updates, external initiatives, housing plan working group.
Okay. The DHCD has finally issued their final grant in the MBTA communities program, which would require town, depending on whether it's a train stop town or a bus stop town, a certain number of units to be made available within a half a mile of the bus stop or the train depot. And Needham was designated as a bus community as opposed to a train community. And finally, that's been changed. And we were being required to make available development sites from the bus total was 2,378 units. And now we're designated as a training community. We're down to 1,784. So that's we're decreasing the responsibility that we have to meet. And this rezoning, which is really what it's all about, is rezoning, needs to be completed by December 31st, 2024. So that gives us some time, and there's not a lot of rezoning aspect. And consideration of open to increase on our 3-story construction to 3.5 stories. And so that will automatically increase footprint capacity. So that's a good move forward. And after merge, we've been working with the tonight and we're going prepared with a 5-page implementation schedule. Finishing out the specific extremely long. So that's kind of the place at the moment. Anybody can give it time to meeting.
I did. So, yeah, I can, that's all good. The other thing I think that happened at the meeting was that there was various bits and pieces of the draft report were, shared with the committee. Things are coming together. It's, a lot of moving parts to it, but, and so at the end of that, the co-chairs asked that anybody who wants to comment on these interim drafts, they get those comments in by yesterday, or the business, or the 17th by midnight. So I did take it upon myself to go through all those bits and pieces that were there. It's not one coherent formal draft review, and submit comments as me, an interested individual citizen, rather than on behalf of the board as chair. And parts of this draft report, are specific do's and don'ts for the Needham Housing Authority. So it's not, just should we have more ADUs and how should we change the bylaws to have more accessory dwelling units, but it was, do's and don'ts for us as well. So I tried to get it in. I tried to get it done sooner than now, but it just wasn't enough volunteer time for that. And I stopped the clock at midnight and actually sent it to them this morning. And so what I would propose is, and I didn't want to just send it out to everybody because I knew we were going to meet tonight, but what I would propose is that I send that draft, and basically it's it's about 30 or 40 pages with Microsoft Word commenting turned on and redlining turned on. Mostly it's just comments. And I just made comments on the whole thing throughout, which I think are the right comments. But I think it would have more weight if it came from the board. And so what I would like to suggest is I send this out tonight. Folks can have a look at it. You're about to find out in a minute that I'm going to propose a special board meeting in a week or two here. And that we might then, see if there's anything you think I got wrong or overlooked. That's another part of it as well, because as Ed will tell you, there's just a huge number of different ideas swirling around. And then we can, get something that, if it is our will to do this, something that is our sort of the formal NHA response or update. It's not even a response, it's just suggestions for improvement and recommendations. In some cases, it was at least one case, and I won't give specifics right now, but I said, I think this is going outside of, stuff about Needham Housing Authority that I suggested was going outside of the four corners of the charter of this committee. Especially something like that, I wouldn't want to represent that as other than my own personal opinion unless you folks all agree with it yourself. That's my suggestion. Make sense? Okay, great. So that brings us to the Preservation and Redevelopment Initiative. We have the Cambridge Housing Authority report that you have in your packet on some page number that somebody else can identify there. And I want to highlight and emphasize a couple of things there, but does anybody have any questions just coming out of the report here? And it's, I pinned this one down. This one is right at the conclusion of this document that we were talking about from HUD about ARPA funds here. So it looks like this.
Could you say the page?
I don't, unfortunately, it says page
71.
71.
Thank you.
And should I just jump into some highlights? So highlight work order number 1, which is determine the RAD section 18 and section 22 feasibility. Remember that from our training, for our federal properties is all about selecting one or more or combination of these funding programs for repositioning ourselves to a much better funding. And that's in the, sort of heading for the finish line. We have the almost final property condition reports. You saw a copy of that in the last board packet. There has been a slight delay on High Rock because a decision was made that we didn't have enough information on the terrible conditions of those buildings, that we need to do some more analysis of the building envelopes. That's going to take another 2 or 3, 4 weeks to go, but that's heading for the finish line. Close enough. So Cambridge has asked me to schedule some placeholder special meeting dates with the board, which I'll get to in a moment here. Because ultimately the decision on what we do and what we go forward to do is a board decision. So it goes back to that training, two evening training session we had last fall. And there'll be a bit of a refresher course there. There will be a new paper updated, the preliminary paper updated with the real numbers and both real numbers leading to which programs are most advantageous to us, and also real numbers and how much extra money it's going to yield for modernizing seabeds and redeveloping High Rock. So that's great that we're getting there to the point of having to schedule board dates in the near future. The other biggie is the Linden Chambers request for designer services proposals. That RFP went out on schedule on, I think it was August 3rd or 4th. We sent you an email with the announcement. Last week, it was Thursday, the 11th, I guess. We had a open house, first site walk around Linden Chambers, and you'd be glad to know that a couple of days before that, we went to a Linden Chambers coffee hour that was extremely well attended. More than people I've seen at a coffee hour for a long time. And to just give them a briefing of what was happening with all these strange dudes walking around and gals walking around, with suits on, basically, kicking the tires. So that went pretty well. We've got lots of good questions, lots of good, interest on that. And next week on the 24th is the proposal actually due. I thought I'd bring you a copy of the kind of schedule. I mean, passed on for you. This is actually a copy of the email I sent to our designer selection committee that sort of laid out what looked like a timetable for evaluating these proposals there. And I thought you'd be interested in just having a sense of the time frame. First, there has to be reference checking and so forth. Then we hit a meeting of the State Designer Selection Committee that is scheduled for, we're now scheduled for the 21st of September. And they will have read the proposals, analyze them, and done the reference checking, which of course Cambridge is doing for us as our consultants here. And then they recommend to us the top 3 to not more than 5 proposers, firms that have proposed, without ranking them, without saying which one is number 1, which one is number 5. We have authorized and taken the option of a local selection committee, as you know, right after that, the 21st, the selection committee meets for 4 to 5 times, 1 hour, 1.5 hour meetings. That's when you do interviews. And then they have a final meeting, hopefully just before, the week of the 17th, maybe the week before that, at the end of the week, where they will there will be a formal paper and a recommendation that's made to the board saying this looks like the most advantageous proposal for the Needham Housing Authority. We will then receive the week of the 17th, which is when our next board meeting is. So we'll either be at our board meeting or a special board meeting. Cambridge is recommending just us doing it at the board meeting, and we make the final selection. Then there's a month of contract negotiation and signing and so forth, and all of a sudden it's Thanksgiving, and so it means that really the kickoff of this thing we've been trying to do forever, and then some, actually is like, be more like December 1st. And the first phase of the designer phase 1 runs for about 15 months after that. And that's where they figure everything out and come up with a real design with all the problems worked out and all the town committees checked with and all the zoning dealt with and all the conservation issues dealt with, and many resident meetings, by the way. I just want to always keep emphasizing that, and hopefully come up with something that is quote unquote pretty shovel ready. And in parallel, we'll be looking for about another 15 or 16 million dollars from somewhere to actually get going with construction in phase 1 during that point. So that is what is going on. Any comments or questions about that? No, amazing grace, right? So, great. So, in terms of dates, let me just go to the budget and also said there's been a huge amount of work on the budget. And it's turned out to be bigger and harder and sort of more elaborate than anybody, at least I anticipated here, because you really have to work out all the tasks for the next couple of years. And then you've got to come up with defensible estimates and so forth. And one of the things I managed to leave behind is a show and tell of where we had gotten. But we finally kind of cracked the code on the format. And Cambridge is now working with Steve and Cheryl and myself, getting a fully baked final budget for everything. We're talking about $3.5 million, $4 million here. It's all funded. We have set a goal for ourselves to have that ready for the board to consider in a couple of weeks. And over here, let's see, I just pulled up here. So we are wondering whether the board can meet on Tuesday, the 29th. We're assuming that it would be, in the early evening, 5, 6, 7 period time, subject to Eleanor's work schedule and commuter rail torment. And that would mean that we'd have a copy of the budget out to everybody with all the assumptions the week before, the way we usually do. And then we will have Cambridge attend, Natalie and Margaret, to present that and to be able to defend any question, answer any question they have and so forth. And then we would seek hopefully approval of this initiative that was started with Eleanor's innocent comment on December 9th saying, shouldn't we have a budget for all of our programs, including the after school program and of course the PRI, the size of it here. In the after school program was $20,000, but this is $3.5 million. So
When you say the 29th is August 29th.
August. Is that a possibility with everybody in their schedules?
Is it going to be Zoom or in person?
It can be either one. It'll be a hybrid meeting. Yeah,
I'm good.
good. So shall we do our usual 7:30? Should we try to cheat it a bit earlier? I'm looking at Eleanor here. 7? All right, let's do 7 o'clock. So that's done. Here's a note here. The second meeting that we're ready to schedule, I mentioned a moment ago, which is we should have the near final repositioning recommendations. And not to be mysterious about it, but it looks like for seabeds and Cook, we're going with the blend approach, the section 18, Brad section 18 blend right now. And for the High Rock, they're in sufficiently poor condition that it enables us to go for the most lucrative funding program, the section 22 demolition. And we'll go through all the pros and cons, all those moving parts that we did our first training on last year. We'll probably do a refresher course, before we jump into it, but there will actually be a paper, that paper will be updated. And also we're going to put some time in making the paper more easier to understand and accessible, So the proposal for that is Tuesday, September 12th. We can pull out our calendars one more time here. Approve the budget.
And so they can't be, those meetings can't be.
The other paper won't be ready by the 29th. And then the other reason for doing it is there's a really lot of moving parts to the budget. And, it can be a short meeting to the extent that, we feel that we trust the Cambridge Housing Authority is leading us in the right direction. But I know the degree of interest that everybody's taken in this up until now.
It's gonna be a short meeting, then I can do it, and if I can do it by Zoom, I can do it earlier.
Yeah, you can do both meetings by Zoom if you'd like.
That's Monday, 12th.
So is it a Monday? I have Tuesday the 12th. Do I have the wrong date there? No, it's Tuesday. Was it Monday the 12th or Tuesday the 12th?
Monday's the 12th.
Yeah. I think we talked about, I think it was the 13th and I made it. I left my notes behind, so I'm sorry about that. Yeah. So Tuesday the 13th, I think is what we're talking about.
Okay, so
Yeah.
that's the day we're meeting Representative Garlic here. And
That is true.
Yeah. No, we can't do that.
Do it.
So Monday, maybe that's why we chose.
And that's an evening meeting.
Yeah, that's an evening meeting, but there's a lot, other stuff going
Going
on.
on that day.
Let's go with the 12th. My backup notes here, I think this is what I wrote down. So does that work with everybody? All right, great. And 7 o'clock again, shall we do that? Okay. All right, back to the agenda here. I brought a. We'll just move on here. So, I think the next thing is. Chad Brown. So one of the things we discovered a week ago when we finally got that schedule figured out is that our architect person is going to be out of the country during the entire evaluation period. Just one of those things. But we did have a backup person who was recommended, as part of the search that we did, Chad Riley, who I've interviewed. He's active. I think he's on one of the other Needham town committees, the PPPC, and is a terrific guy. Both of these guys know each other, so Real is going to step aside, maybe be available for our next RFP. And Chad, I contacted him, he's willing to step in and take his place. So I'm seeking, you saw his bio that I put in there. He's obviously a heavyweight. And I'm seeking the board's approval to go ahead and nominate him for our local selection committee. Any questions about Chad? Does anybody know him? No? Okay. Highly recommended. So I make the motion that we appoint Chad Riley to our Linden Chambers Local Selection Committee. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second from Penny. Any further discussion? Roll call vote. Reg Foster votes aye.
Janice Bennett, aye.
Okay, that passes unanimously. I spoke to the budget, so that leaves the CIP update. Is that, want to give a little heads up what's coming this fall? DSC advertising potential meeting. Okay, yours.
No. So, yeah, that's the annual.
It is the annual, yeah.
I'm not sure why that's.
Maybe that didn't get deleted. And
Yeah, that's an old.
All right. All right, so we're off to agenda item F, status updates, internal initiatives. We have RCAP recommendation in the next pages of the budget. And I'm sorry, packet here. It's right after Chad Riley here.
Yeah, the RPAC, this is a resolution that the board would pass to award this contract like this intercom panel replacement. It's
Page 74 and 75.
to the low bidder was Larry Electrical Contractors in the amount of $14,300. And the director Kurt Fulton has reviewed it and finds it to be in order. The our engineers did the reference check and they came back fine, so they're recommending that Larry be awarded the contract. This is the replacement of Chambers Street intercom panel replacement.
So you're recommending that the board
Yes, I'm recommending the board
approve
pass
this?
the resolution in the amount of $14,300 to Larry electrical contract.
So does anybody have any questions or comments? Board members? I make a motion that we approve the award of this engagement or contract to Larry for $14,300. Do I hear a second? Any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call vote. Reg Foster votes aye.
Any further?
Janice Bennett, aye.
And it passes unanimously here. So we're on to the report from the Cook After School Steering Committee. Janice, Penny, Cheryl, Steve.
Yeah, so we've had a couple of meetings since then. I'm trying to,
I'm sorry.
we've had a couple of meetings since our last meeting here. So we'll go into that.
So I see that there are minutes here from 28.
There are, yep, right after what we were just considering.
let's see. I guess I could add, what I mentioned before, these other events that are taking place, and, when we get the move in place, we're gonna put together a team that are include as many of this, steering committee as can do it, to work on organizing and equipment. It would take a few days, I think. I don't know how many of the parents of children will have the contact to the office.
For backpacks or for?
No, for the program. That's something.
Yeah, right.
We're not gonna do it.
We don't have that right now.
I'm sorry.
We don't have that information right now.
Oh. Well, I ran into one young man when I was coming to the meeting earlier. Who remembered me, but I didn't remember him because he was wrong about it before. But he was one that was hoping to, he's coming to the brother and he was great. Jan, for you and Jack, so you're in the next thing? Janice, do you want to say something about the fundraiser?
Yeah, I can hardly hear what anybody's saying for some reason, but yep, I've been out there pounding the pavement. This week I've actually gone to Brothers Pizza, I've gone to the golf club, I've gone to the garden center. And I reached out to the community council, spoke with Sandy. And today I've just figured out how to track down the Rotary Club since they don't actually have an office, but I did meet with Fidelity. I'm hoping that we should have received a check for $500. They also said they'd help with backpacks. I went down there with the ages and genders of the children requiring backpacks. I have heard nothing back yet. I don't know about the office, but I'm going to follow up this week and hopefully things will start trickling in. I'm not that good of a beggar. I'm more of a giver.
Professional beggar.
It's a tough job. It's a tough job.
You and I are gonna hopefully go to the Rotary Club lunch next Tuesday.
Well, I don't know what the entrance procedure is for that luncheon, but I could call up the Sheridan and find out. I don't know. But I do have that address that you got me, Penny, and I am gonna send them, the donor letter and possibly make a phone call and, so yeah, that's my fundraising.
Can I just say,
The other fundraiser is Jill Olive. She's been getting some good money, but she's away in Michigan right now. So
She contacted me a little while ago, Penny. She's back.
Oh, good.
Exactly.
Okay.
She thinks there's a meeting tomorrow, but there isn't.
So I sent her the minute. So, and I'll send everybody the next meeting date, which is next Thursday at 1:30.
So are there any comments or questions about the report?
can I just say one?
Yeah, go ahead, Gary.
As we were talking tonight, Lisa Viagra from Storytime has 50 backpacks for school kids to go back to school with. I've been talking with her tonight. She's gonna drop them off to me on the 31st when I get back. She has 50 of them.
Wow, awesome.
Are they first is the first day of school? Are they
I'll
filled?
get you more information on that tomorrow, but I've been in contact with her all week and I've been talking to her tonight. So she has 50 backpacks.
Are they loaded or are they have to?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah, that was an either or question.
yes, it's
They're
with
loaded?
school supplies in them, yes.
Okay. Is there any way she could drop them sooner?
I can reach out to her. We were going back and forth, but she was gonna drop them off to me on Monday, the 31st, she said.
Okay,
Then we need to get in touch with the Fidelity Bank and tell them that you don't need to.
let's see how many we get. Well, we need to talk about that in the office, see how many we need. Excellent, thank you, Gary.
That's tremendous.
And before we go on to the budget, there's a position description in the next page of the board packet. Is there something that you want to bring to the board's attention there?
I just was showing, I just handed it out again, I guess you already, I forgot to put it in there. The other thing is a note from KP Law, I asked a question that was brought up. So the manager of the program will be an employee of the housing authority, part-time under 18 hours, anticipate 16 hours. So there won't be benefits, per se, with the exception of generally time benefits or, you know, you get here for not a year and the different time benefits you may get, but not the national benefits.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
So we'll move on to the after-school program budget. How's it going pulling that together?
It's coming together. We'll be fine. I will have a budget for you, a little more detail, but we're gonna be ready to go.
Okay.
You know, and we still have that. You know, if we needed a little pouch money.
Yeah, are we going to have a one-page spreadsheet?
Yes,
Yeah,
yes,
for next time, next
Yes.
month?
Okay, great.
And
You
hopefully be a little simpler than what we've been doing on the PRI, so.
Yeah.
Also, there's a carryover question, I think it was from Eleanor. What's our situation in terms of having the proper insurance coverage?
Sorry. To get back to you.
Get back.
But I say that because I will get the details on it, but understand that these kids live here and this is a community center, so we are under the umbrella. You know, it's like if they were here on a Wednesday night, I mean, we would be covered, so, but I will confirm that with HAI, but I'm 1,000% confident in that, I'll get that.
I think you're right, Steve.
Yeah,
Well, and I think this, you know, just you want to let the insurance agent know and have them check and get something in writing back to them saying, yes, you are covered, or something like that.
Yeah.
Because you know, my experience with insurance policies is there's lots of weasel words in there, and you know, you don't know where they're buried. You know, there's an exception or there's some requirement for notification that you don't have to do in other circumstances, and you just want to make sure the kid falls out of it, you know, off the table and breaks their leg, then okay.
just to clarify on one other thing, we talked about registration. The state law requires no registration, so we are having parents fill out forms to give permission for their children to be here. Their permission slips, they're not registration forms.
Every word of that.
Every word of that.
And that's probably how the minutes should read, I think.
Yes.
That our discussion just a moment ago there. I guess I wonder if there's some other proactive effort that we need to do to kind of get people to stick their toe in the water and try it out. Has that been talked about by the committee? Well, you know, you don't want to open up and have nobody show up because of whatever, I don't know, you know, people are, yeah. We can't have more than 14, I saw, but you know, but you know, it'd be nice to have a half a dozen and have some critical mass. You know, is there something we need to do to, you know, in the first week to have a, you know, a giveaway program or, you know, special cookies or, you know, or the kinds of things that would get people to give it a try and then find out they're having a great time and then it sort of builds on itself word of mouth wise. I'm wondering if that's something that's been considered here, sort of a little marketing.
Well, Steve said that he's gonna get in touch with Mark, you know. At the TV channel, at the meeting.
They didn't share probably a little.
And then he might do a little, but I don't know who watches them. But everybody's received mailings and letters and the barbecue, I would think would be.
So we don't have to discuss it here. I'm just you're opening up a new Chase Bank, where, where the 7-Eleven used to be, and let's go back far enough, where the Friendlies used to be, and when they open it up next week, they're gonna be giving away toasters, come in here and get a toaster and a free account, or something like that. Now, I'm not suggesting toasters, but is there sort of a kid equivalent or family equivalent of something, free giveaway balloons, or,
Everybody that signs up gets a toaster.
there you go.
No, we will be
You
marketing.
know what I'm talking about. Okay.
And actually, and Charlotte's coordinating with, the school department with, Margaret and the, Karen from the Elliott School. So we will have.
So we only have 11 children here at Captain Robert Cook Drive in that age group. So those parents have received notification about the program. And then we'll go from there.
All right, moving along. I think we're done with that. I believe agenda item F4 speaks for itself. Restoration of the community center at Captain Robert Cook Drive. -- completed in boldface. Okay.
Yay.
Yay, team. Well done. Thank you, Gary. Thank you, Steve.
Gary.
Thank you, everybody.
I was just, I just all the work.
We didn't hear you,
I
Gary.
didn't get that.
I said I just directed traffic. Craig, Eric, Jason, they were 90% of the work. George, the painter, did a great job for us, and Talty Floors did the floors for us. And then the guys did all the demo and all the rewiring, shade, lighting. Kevin Kent Electric did the electrical. So it was a whole group of people involved.
I can't wait to see how this building gets to be used. I think it's just so inviting, and hope there's many birthday parties here, and whatever celebrations of various kinds. Can't wait to see how it works. I think this is the first, what I would call services improvement thing that has been done since I've been here. I think about it.
Yep.
I mean, well, so there's always been, health services and, but, to actually open up a facility that, we haven't ever done this. So I think it's just really, great how it turned out. So. All
You're
right,
welcome.
thank you. Like I said, well, it was a long and twisty road we went down, but it's great to have the success. And, I think it takes a village, all of us working together. Captain Robert, 42 Captain Robert Cook Drive is in process.
So now we'll be moving things next week at some point out of there. Hopefully to get it vacated as well, so that we can then start renovating that to become home for a family of up to 8 people, right? It's 4 bedrooms. So it's a large unit.
And I send you out this housing plan working group draft document. One of the most shocking things in that document, would anybody like to guess how many 5-member, low-income families live in Needham? It's down tremendously since 20 years ago. And, it's a shockingly low number. I mean, maybe go add up, how many 3 and 4 bedroom, 2, 3, 4 bedroom units do we have? And, it must be mostly our people, that's what it must be, so. That's all disappeared in the last 20 years, all those starter homes, so. Anyway, onward, paving project, what's up with that?
That's still in the process of design. We are, Gary, help me out here. You did one? No.
We're still in the process of selecting an engineer.
Engineer. For that.
Okay, and same update on the Seabed's Way, Captain Robert Cook CCTV system.
Same there, we're working on getting either design, or we have to make a decision to go either for design or design and construction. That grant that we have for that will be extended for up to 12 months, so we have time to get that underway. But there's, Cheryl has met with Cyclops Company, and they are willing to do, they'd like to do both, is that right?
That's right,
They're willing to separate, but they like to do both.
they would like to do that.
So that kind of,
Gary Smith with them all.
Is that the same company that did High Rock? I mean, Linden?
No, they're out of Ohio.
Okay, because I think we ought to go with someone else at this
you might be
point.
approved. Yeah, I think you might be approved on that.
Super, so let's go to new business then. G1, 2022, 23, 2022 Needham Housing Authority resident survey. So this is just a heads up to the board. One of the things Angie took the lead in getting done this time last year in October was our first annual survey. And I asked Cheryl and Steve to just put the results, the survey instrument in this month's board packet, just to reload it into our memory banks here, and also the results. And in fact, there was a maturation process, I think, and a learning process that came out of doing that. And so next month's board meeting, we're going to want to say, what, if anything, do we want to change about the survey in terms of the questions and so forth. And I know one, for example, that we all went, oh, we should have done this and we didn't, which was to ask the resident, preserve the anonymity, but ask the residents to identify what development they were in. And we would have had a sort of better, finer grained understanding of where things are going well and things might not be going well. The second was, and Ed actually took the lead on this after several false starts, pulling the data together in a format, a spreadsheet format, which really sort of made it easy to sort of see. Bar graphs are good, but his spreadsheet made it easy to see, again, where things stand overall. And I think Penny took the lead in pulling together all the comments, because even though our statistical answers to those questions are, were pretty good, there's a lot of interesting, useful information on how we can improve in those comments as well. We'll look at that in the next board meeting, and then Steve and Cheryl can get the survey out in approximately the same time frame. And we're not necessarily looking to change a lot about the survey, because there's a lot of benefit to have year-over-year comparisons with the same questions worded the same way. But so think about that. And then going on to new business G2, guidelines for resident input at the board meeting, and give credit to Ed to putting some thought in and getting the discussion going in between the meetings on this topic, and Steve seizing the initiative. And it's actually on the first page of our board packet. That page number, I can guess for myself, guidelines for
page 6.
first, part of the, that's right, after the table of contents. for public comment period and public hearings in need of housing authority. Steve, how did you come up with this list here?
I use that age-old thing that we usually, it was a Google search. And found one, this was one from a different housing authority somewhere in the country, and I edited it fairly intensely. I mean, it was more of a little, much more. It was different, so we softened it down a little bit, but it hit all the normal issues that come up, I think, is through a board meeting. So I don't know, I offer to the board for comment, and
Well, and I would like to ask Ed also to, you know, for everybody's benefit to just, you know, recreate the question you were posing after the last meeting for us. You know, why are we trying to do this? What was your suggestion to Steve here?
On multiple occasions, where people have interrupted during the meeting. And there's been a very flat suggestion of, this is not the time for you to speak. And one meeting, one lady who tried to do that, and then shut off, got up and walked out. And I thought, gosh, maybe we have another way of handling this, so that we don't offend people or make them feel on the left or right involved. And so I initiated a conversation with Steve, saying that somewhere in the training, we've been instructed that when a resident comes to us with a complaint, directly to us, any of the commissioners with a complaint, and we can put it into the grievance process. And Steve went up to me, and he came back and he said, I would rather have people come to me at their initial complaint and let me try to resolve it, because I haven't had a grievance in the 17 years I've been known. And I thought it was pretty darn impressive. So for Steve to offer to be the first contact for a resident who has a complaint, I thought was very generous of him. So that's how this whole thing started.
And I think you also said to me separately, using that example, is part of it also had to do with maybe people don't know what the ground rules are. I mean, we haven't taken the time.
Yeah, you came back, I sent this all the way to bring you up to date, what Steve and I have discussed. And you came back with a very positive reaction, that you outlined some things that you thought maybe should be discussed at the beginning of the meeting, so that everybody understands what the problem is. Very good, positive stuff.
And
which probably I'm sure they'll do this.
it led to the, you know, and Steve putting it at the beginning of the meeting, and as we were starting the meeting tonight, I was thinking, oh, you know, it would be useful to, like, you know, do some excerpts from this thing, but of course, it would be out of context of the new business that it is here.
Right.
But I think, you know, that, you know, three-way discussion, you know, I think it's led to the proposal that we might want to consider adopting this as our formal policy for the public comment period of any meeting we have, whether it's just our routine monthly meeting or at the annual plan hearing next month, or any other public comment period. And maybe there's some improvements that can be made to it, but at least we'd have something that people can review in advance and know, for example, that it's never appropriate. You know, everybody knows it's not appropriate to yell and scream. Most everybody knows that, but it's never appropriate to bring up individual names and situations and so forth and so on. You know, just as a matter of personal privacy and so forth. So,
I have a question. I don't see any reference to the time.
there is a 3-minute time limit in there somewhere.
Because there has been conversations about how that isn't going on.
yeah, it's written, number 3, first sentence. Yeah.
It's not a number, it's the spelled out three.
Oh.
It goes along. Maybe we should change it to a number. Let's change that to a number because it does jump out at you better if it says three.
Yeah, okay.
And the one thing I thought I put in there, oh, there is, they can indicate their desire to speak, but I also, the last sentence of number 2, comments may be also be entered by mail or email. I think I'd want to kind of emphasize that a little bit more. Make it a separate thing, so we could get written comments earlier and the board could consider them during that time.
One question I have too is if people aren't Zoom, I mean, there's not gonna be a sign up, I mean, they won't be able to sign up on the sign up sheet, so. I mean, they would. have
They
to
raise their
do that.
hand, yeah,
So I don't know if they're going to.
yeah. It's-
And then I noticed in under number 9, we talked about before the council, but I'm assuming it should say before the board.
Oh, yeah, that's one that can get a lot. Yeah. It's, some of it seems a little prescriptive, but I think basically this is the rule book.
Yeah.
And it really only has to, the files are only called when there's a violation of rules, not necessarily, you know, if everybody's talking in a good way. You know, things can be overlooked, but when things go south, you gotta kind of fall back on the rules.
Well, exactly. It's not overlooked. It's just simply that there's discretion on the board to say, you know, and the board chair moderating the meeting to say, you know, you're saying something really interesting. Let's keep on going beyond 3 minutes. You know, I think this is well written in terms of, you know, making sure that it's not used arbitrarily here. The one other comment I have on this, and I'm ready to, you know, use this at the next meeting as is. I think it's, you know, great. But one other comment is that I know people haven't been associated with this area for as long as I have. There are some very specific regulations in I don't do this by memory, 760 CFR 6.08 that entitle state residents to and tennis associations to comment on board agenda items of certain kinds, you know, and I don't know whether it would be useful for us to, you know, also have that pulled into this, not word for word necessarily, or useful for the board or future board chairs or something to understand, you know, what you got to work with by that.
What was the reference again?
I'm gonna, I may not, we can send it out to you now, but it's 760 CFR 6.08, that's our general DHCD section. So there's 04, 05, 06, 08, 011, and 15 that are important here. And there are many pages of, you know, regulations in there covering all kinds of things here.
I mean, I was thinking that maybe we would get to have a general statement in here that, you know, that there's a public comment period at the beginning, and then it's something like accept, or something like accept as otherwise.
Exactly.
Maybe by the chair.
Yeah.
That, or something,
Or required by
or
760.
required applicable regulations or something like that. That the public comment period is the time for residents to
Wait,
speak or something.
so maybe we can take a look at those two suggestions. I was just thinking more from a board education point of view, you know, it's just, I mean, we're pretty much doing this. But it's sort of, it is addressed in a way. I think we're kind of at the end of the agenda, though. One more comment?
I just thought also maybe in saying, maybe we would have to say, in the interest of enabling the board to address all the items that needs to address, to not make it something.
To have a preamble,
Not kind of shut us.
so add a preamble as well.
Yeah.
Saying something like that. and make sure everybody has a chance to has time to speak and so forth and so on. Okay, with that, I think we reached the end of the agenda. Thank you, everybody. I will entertain a motion to adjourn. I make a motion to adjourn in a second. Roll call vote, Red Foster votes aye.
Janice Bennett, aye.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you. You're welcome.
I think there was a, thank you, everybody for that. And rigor mortis is set in on the chair, so I'm not sure. These, I don't want to be elitist, but I'm not sure I can sit on this chair every evening here, so. I didn't want to have a little off the record show and tell here. I hope I'm not violating a public meeting law thing, but what, I just want to encourage everybody. Let's do the chat for your wall. I mean, if I whack somebody with it, if you have a burglar or something like that.
Congratulations.
It all came, so here, so took 2 years.
Ah. Okay, so
Oh, thank you. Guys sign them?
Good night, all.
Thanks for everything. I should have done this, right? Meeting's adjourned.
Good night, all.
Good night, night, Ada.
I gotta really thank you for whatever magic or talent you had brought to the table here. Compared to the meetings that we were having this time last year, all the way through the end of the year, it was just beyond. It's just I really, really appreciate it. You make it look so easy, and I know it isn't here, so it's incredible.
There's a lot going on.
That's a lot going on.
Yeah.
Yeah,
There it is.
yeah, there's a lot going on.
So,
Steve.
when things are going smoothly, nobody realizes, that there's a lot going on. To take it for granted. Must be easy, but I don't know how to do it. When letting me do all my crazy, redevelopment thing here.
Well, the staff really is phenomenal.
Our staff?
Yes, Nada, Blair, Curtis, Marie, just a phenomenal staff, and they are so committed to Steve, they're happy. When Steve came in, Rich, they moved the mountain and they said, you're not gonna stay in this office, you're gonna get a bigger, better office. The staff really